Alrighty, so let's get into it. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this phenomenon of constant connectivity. My guess is that most of you can imagine waking up first thing in the morning, reaching for that little device that spent the night recharging by your side while you tried to do the same. For many of us, it's become almost Pavlovian to grab that device to see what occurred during our non-waking hours. There are all sorts of entertaining statistics out there. We've heard a couple of them mentioned. I think Megan from Johnson & Johnson mentioned that there are more mobile phone subscriptions in the world than there are toothbrushes. At the Lumi booth, our little question was around how many Americans, what percentage of Americans have actually dropped their mobile device in the toilet in 2012. It was 19%. So there are tons of numbers out there, lots of entertaining stats. But beyond the numbers, beyond like the growth and penetration that we know is very prevalent, even in countries where mobile saturation has already taken place several years ago at this point, there's no doubt that mobile technology is changing our lives. It's changing the way that we learn, it's changing the way that we remember, it's also changing the way that we interact with loved ones, whether they live next door or half a world away. So psychologists are actually just starting to wrap their head around what this means for people on a psychological level and how this kind of constant checking behavior actually affects our well-being. My guess is that you can all relate to the sort of pressures of an always-on society, feeling constantly connected, but also maybe having some sense of freedom because of that ability to constantly connect. I think it's a fine balance. All right, so with all of that in mind, I'm going to send out a couple of polls, so hopefully you guys are up and running with me too, and again, you'll see, it's actually at the bottom of this slide, but that 9-digit number that you can just pop into the app or into the mobile web browser at the end. So I can see how many responses are coming in real time here, so it would be great to know how many times a day you think that you check your own smartphone. So is it between 10 and 30, 31 to 80, 81 to 150 times, or over 150? All right, so I have 36 responses, 38 responses. I think that's pretty good, 41. I'll give you guys one more second before I close the poll. All right, looks good. Okay, so I'm just going to close the poll now, and we can see those numbers come in real time. So pretty good, actually. About 35% of you say between 31 and 80 times. It's actually, on average, we're checking our smartphone about 150 times a day. That stat is from Mary Meeker's Internet Trends. So it's a lot of times. We really are constantly connected. And I'm going to jump now into the next poll here. Open that up for you guys. So have you or your colleagues conducted a mobile survey in the past 6 months? Yes, no, or I don't know. So I'll give you all a moment for that. I'm going to participate here too on my device. All right, they're still coming in. Thank you for the participation. You guys are a good crowd. We're up to 50. All right, I'm going to close the poll now. Let's see what everyone says. Excellent, that's very good, 76%. All right, so now I'm just going to push out one more poll. When it comes to consumer insight capture through mobile technology, what's better? Is it the native app approach, mobile web, a combination of the two, or no opinion? So I'll let you guys pop in your answers there. This is easy. I'll let you all do the work. I can just stand up here. Just take another few seconds. All right, and now I will close the poll. Interested to see what everyone said here. All right, a combination of the two. That's good to know, and I do think that that actually very much speaks, those numbers speak to where we are as an industry right now. So that's good feedback. That's my last poll for the time being. There is a messaging capability. If you look at the little, let me just close this so you can see. There is a messaging capability that you can send in questions. I do have quite a bit of content to get through here, so I'll take a look at the end, and depending on time, I'll try to answer a few, or you can also find me back at the Lumi booth later this afternoon. All right, so now I'm just going to push out one more poll. When it comes to consumer insight capture through mobile technology, what's better? Is it the native app approach, mobile web, a combination of the two, or no opinion? So I'll let you guys pop in your answers there. All right, and now I will close the poll. Interested to see what everyone said here. All right, a combination of the two. That's good to know, and I do think that that actually very much speaks, those numbers speak to where we are as an industry right now. So that's good feedback. That's my last poll for the time being. There is a messaging capability. If you look at the little, let me just close this so you can see. There is a messaging capability that you can send in questions. I do have quite a bit of content to get through here, so I'll take a look at the end and depending on time, I'll try to answer a few or you can also find me back at the Lumi booth later this afternoon. All right, so now I'm going to get into the psychology of smartphone use. So smartphones on the brain and the brain on smartphones. There's actually quite a bit of conflicting evidence out there, scientific and anecdotal alike, that points to, first of all, the negative effects of smartphone use. So there's some research conducted by Cheryl Turkle out of MIT, suggesting, she's a clinical psychologist, suggesting that smartphones steal us away from the moment at hand, causing us to miss out on real life. There's also some research out there that suggests that our minds are never really focused on the task at hand, meaning we're never fully present. My guess is all of you can relate to detrimental sleep or poor sleep quality due to late-night smartphone use. And then there are also some worrisome concerns regarding the impact of mobile social media engagement. But as with most findings, there's actually some positive literature out there, and this is all pretty early days in terms of understanding this from a psychological perspective. But there's quite a bit of research that actually suggests people are having a positive experience when engaging with their smartphone. So we see that smartphone use can actually increase feelings of effectiveness and productivity. Smartphone engagement actually lends itself to this concept of transactive memory, which basically just means that you know where to look for something rather than having to store that information internally. And we also see that smartphone use can improve meaningful memory as it frees us from the mundane. And then virtual social connection, we see, can actually provide a buffer against stress and pain. So there's a lot of literature out there around this positive effects of social connection, and we see this play out very effectively in virtual domains. So with that sort of conflicting evidence in mind, I went to look to answer these three key questions. So I completed my dissertation this past December, so I'm going to be talking to you a bit about some of the data from all of that, and these are the questions that really motivated my research. There's a lot of psychological literature that I can get into, and I'm more than happy to chat about that offline, but I want to really apply this to all of us as market researchers and hopefully take some good, some takeaways to bring back home and back to your colleagues with you. All right, so these are the three questions. What fuels this need to check our mobile device constantly? What motivates this behavior that has become an inherent part of our daily life? And how does this behavior impact our well-being? So again, with the contradictory evidence in mind, some of us can probably relate to really positive experiences with our mobile device. But again, on the flip side, some negative effects where we really do feel this kind of pressure of an always-on society. All right, so let me just jump into the methodology and the actual research that was conducted to go about answering these questions. So we see the data was collected from a sample of 400 demographically representative Americans over the course of a 2-week period. I had self-report measures that were completed at the start and end of the 2-week period, so it was a within subjects longitudinal design. And the self-report measures really aim to understand people's relationship with their smartphone, and there are also a handful of scales to assess different types of motivation, as well as levels of well-being. Now, during the course of that 2-week period, there was also passive meter data that was being collected. So we had a native app sitting in the back end of participants' devices, and we were really able to see this full picture in terms of raw checking behavior. So I could tell how many times a day you're looking at your email, how many times a day are you looking at Facebook, how many times a day are you looking at Twitter, whatever it might be. There was a wealth of checking behavior kind of data. All right, so with that came some big data. So it was a really unique data set in that it was a lot of self-report measures, again with that within subjects longitudinal design, and then all of the raw checking behavior. Now, what I'm going to be focusing on right now, just jump to the next, I'll go back for a second. I'm going to talk you through right now is sort of very high level, the psychological takeaways here, touching a bit on motivation and well-being, but again, just focusing on the subjective experience, really. So how people are engaging with their device, why it matters to them, and how we can hopefully benefit from that as market researchers. So I just want to take a quick look at the graphical representation of a subset of the data here. So on the y-axis, I have well-being, as defined by a scale called flourishing. Hopefully that's pretty self-explanatory. And then on the x-axis, subjectively valuable use. So what I mean by subjectively valuable use is this kind of the experience around smartphone engagement. So as defined by each individual, it definitely is a subjective measure. So basically what we see here, the red axis, the red line is clearly in an upward trajectory. So it's visually clear as well that when smartphone engagement is experienced as valuable, we're seeing this increase in well-being. So the subjective experience really matters in that positive way. And then on the flip side, when the smartphone engagement is experienced as valueless or in a negative way, we're actually seeing lower scores of well-being. So there's no question from this data, and I know it's very high level kind of takeaway here, but the subjective experience absolutely matters when it comes to people's relationship with their mobile device. So it's not a terribly surprising finding, as a lot of results in social science research. I think that makes quite a bit of sense. You have a positive experience, you end up having higher scores of well-being. You have a negative experience, lower scores of well-being. But it really speaks to the fact that people's well-being is actually affected here. It really speaks to the prevalence and just the constant access that we have to these devices. And obviously the sample of participants, they were all based in the US. They all obviously were smartphone owners. But I think the key point, the takeaway here regarding the subjective experience and what we can hopefully take away as market researchers is how to make it matter. So if you take a minute to think about how can you make your research matter to your participants, I think that that can be a particularly powerful message, especially when it comes to mobile technology. So I'm going to just spend a couple minutes, this is not my data, this is actually from ComScore and Flurry, to understand where people are spending their time. So clearly we're spending a lot of time with our smartphones. These graphs here show a comparison of native app to mobile web use. So we're actually seeing that 86% of smartphone FaceTime is spent inside of a native app. So it's a large majority of time there. And if you take a closer look, hopefully you can see in the back there, 32% of smartphone FaceTime in these native apps is actually engaged in some sort of game, so some sort of mobile gaming. And then we see 28% is spent with Facebook and other social media outlets. So what are people doing with their phones? They're engaging with native apps. And what kind of apps? I mean, I think somebody mentioned earlier that I can't remember the actual number of apps available in the App Store, but people only have about 30 on their device. Those 30 apps are those that people are finding some kind of meaning, that they're engaging with in a way that matters to them, and there's some sort of self-perceived value in that interaction. So I think that that, again, is the real opportunity for market researchers. All right. So with all of that in mind, I just want to spend a few minutes talking about the ROI of the native app approach, knowing that that's where people are spending the vast majority of their time. And in addition to that, knowing what kind of apps seem to matter to people. Now, all of these are features of native app technology. Native app technology allows for geofencing, in-app notifications, offline capability, rich media capture, and it also serves as a sticky touch point. So that's something that has really resounded with a lot of different presentations that have been taking place over the past 2 days. I've seen all of these kind of pop up, and again, it's very much in the framework of the subjective experience and how you can make the research matter to the end user, which really should be, at the end of the day, the ultimate goal when it comes to mobile technology and insight capture through mobile technology. So I'm just going to jump through a couple of these key points and features of the native app approach. So with geofencing, we know that this can really promote data collection that's in the context of location, presumably making it that much more relevant to the end user. There's also the opportunity to have data, having a higher quality of data, rather. So you know where the person is located. It also serves as an extra validation check so that you can confirm that, yes, my participant is actually having this genuine experience. So geofencing is really about making it relevant, making it matter to the end user. And then with in-app notifications, if you think about how you use your own device, my guess is that you respond pretty well to in-app notifications. So it's not quite as intrusive as a text message. It doesn't get lost in the plethora of emails that we get every single day. It sort of seems to be the right balance when it comes to sending a friendly reminder. We see really impressive response rates using in-app notifications. We actually had a study in the US where we had between 70 and 80% response rates, largely dependent upon these in-app notifications that were either time-based or behavior-based. So that was a very powerful capability of this in our native app technology. We also see a reduction in memory bias because, again, the smartphone is never more than an arm's length away, and people are ready and willing to enter if you make it convenient for them. And then just sort of a general sense of familiarity and engagement with native app technology because, again, people are spending so much time engaging in native apps. And then offline capability. I see this as really, again, coming back to making it matter, making it convenient and easy for people to engage with smartphone technology. So at the end of the day, if you have offline capability, people can engage anytime, anywhere, regardless of location and connectivity. So this is not always a problem. It really depends on where you are, but it's often a nice to have and can really capitalize on that in the moment. And again, we see a reduction in memory bias as well. So 2 more points. Rich media capture. At the end of the day, I'd say it's safe to say that an image is worth 1,000 words and a video maybe even more. So it's really nice to be able to see the world through the eyes of your participant. Everybody likes taking pictures on their smartphone. I'm sure everyone's taken at least one selfie over the past couple of days. So it's just a way to engage and promote meaningful feedback from your participants. And then sticky touch point. So once that app download occurs, you have the opportunity to engage with your participants and your panelists in a meaningful way. So it's an easy, interactive, regular touch point, and you don't have to start from scratch with each new recruitment. So the app really does allow for this kind of regular touch point that people can engage with whenever they want. But I'd say the component here that's most important is the availability of content with which to engage. And I think that the presentation from Crowd Lab earlier today really hits home on this point as well in terms of the how you're breaking things up, meaningful engagement, and making content available. I'm not going to keep an app on my phone if there's nothing for me to do with it. All right, so I just want to take a step back here, go back to the beginning in terms of what was actually motivating this research, understanding more about the psychology of why we feel the need to be constantly connected. And it might be a little tough in the back to read, so I have relevant experience plus increased sense of well-being equals higher engagement and presumably better data. So for so many of us, we've grown up with access to the internet. And for younger generations, I mean, the smartphone is right there. I've seen a video of a toddler trying to swipe like an iPad on a magazine. So it's very much something that we've grown up with, and people are ready and willing to engage. So I hope that some of the points, these 5 key benefits that I've walked through, give you some food for thought in terms of how you can engage with your participants that are the lifeblood of this industry. And mobile just affords such a unique opportunity to make your research matter, not only to you and your client and whatever brand or experience you're looking to support and understand, but you can really make it matter to the end user. And that's a very unique opportunity with mobile technology. So I just want to send the same poll back out one more time to see if you are all looking at your smartphones during this presentation or if some of the points I made hit home in any way. So I'm just going to open this poll back up. If you guys can look to me too again. When it comes to the consumer insight capture through mobile technology, what do we see as being the best approach or the better approach? Native app technology, mobile web, a combination of the two, or no opinion? I won't be offended either way, just interested to see how you took all of that. So I'll give you guys another minute to pop in your response. And once I close this vote, we're actually going to be able to see a comparison of the first poll compared to the second poll. So I'll just give it one more second. 40. Oh, I see some people changing their minds. You can clear your vote and pop a new question in. All right, I'm going to close the poll. And let's see what everyone said. Oh, well, thanks, guys. I'm glad my, at least some of that was relevant, or you found relevant. So I'm just going to pop to this next slide, actually, and we can reveal the results. So maybe we can even tweet that for at Lumi Insight. But no, so it's good to see the real-time feedback from the audience. You guys really are the most relevant audience here. Hopefully you can take back everything that's been discussed during the conference, so that at the end, people really are using mobile in a more meaningful way. So a big thanks to all of you for listening. Thanks to Lumi, Kantar Mobile, and Columbia University as well. So, thanks.
Any questions for Dr. Holterhaus?
I actually can check out the messages on here just to see. Not sure how many there will be. Somebody wants to know what's my shoe size. I do have rather large feet, but I wear a size 12. So let's see. So what's the benefit to the user of native when taking surveys? So hopefully all of those 5 key points, the sticky touch point, it's just easy to engage with, like offline capability, making it convenient, geofencing, making it relevant to your location, image capture, it just makes it a little bit more fun, or video capture as well. So hopefully all of those points, that's really the main message, is making it matter, making it meaningful to the end user. All right, let's see. So, how many Android users are here in the audience? So people can chime in with their device. Actually, with me too, I could quickly create that question on the fly, but I don't have
Old-fashioned poll.
Yeah, any old-fashioned question.
You could raise your Android if you got one. One. All right.
An Android, yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Stay up here. Last night we had an awards ceremony here, and Juliana was busy celebrating with her company. I believe last week is the word?
It is.
It is the word. And but she did win, and their company did win, the best use of mobile tech, which we saw demonstrated here today. Here is your plaque.
Thank you, Mark. Very nice.
And we get a little photo with you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, much appreciated. Should I say anything?
Yeah.
I just really receiving this on behalf of Lumi. A special shout out to my colleague Amy, who made the submission. So I'm honored to accept it, but can't take too much credit. Amy's on maternity leave right now. She just had a beautiful baby girl. So thanks so much for this. We really appreciate it and are honored to be here. So thank you.
Terrific.
Thanks. Good?
You can have the box too.
Oh, thank you. Thanks.